I remember listening Bret Weinstein when he said that when you take an animal in your hands, you can see animal's eyes, and through these eyes you can detect if this particular animal feels fear or curiosity or happiness. And then he said the problem with AI is that it doesn't have eyes. You don't understand what it feels, if it feels at all. And I was thinking about it for some time because we don't know what AI is. And when we argue about if artificial intelligence conscious, first we have to define what do you mean by conscious. We don't even know if we are conscious ourselves. We assume we are, but for example, we still don't have a concrete definition of a mind, only such a philosophical predisposition of what it might be and how we might define it in a sense that it sounds logical. We are emotional creatures, and if you think about us, that we try to align our feelings that create our subjective experience to align them with objective reality of the outside. Otherwise, there's no way to preserve this harmony with life, internal and external. We want to feel that certain things are right and that certain things are wrong. We have these internal feelings, but it doesn't always ally with the reality, with objective reality. And what feels right, not always right. Sometimes what feels right could be very misleading and provoke us to do certain actions that we might regret in the future. That's why we have to be very careful with our subjective experience, and if we push our subjective experience upon other people with intention for them to create objective reality out of our subjective experience, it's usually the path toward tyranny. But I digress a little bit. Artificial intelligence in this case is dangerous because we don't understand how it works. We know we grow it, but we don't understand why it does what it does. And it's not biological. And now I believe personally that we have to create different category of consciousness for artificial intelligence. I think the problem with artificial intelligence is categories. Because we try to apply the same categories to artificial intelligence as we apply to us, to biological creatures. The way we conscious is through our biology. And on a certain point, we became self-aware. And when we became self-aware, we discovered notion of time. And with the notion of time, we probably discover notion of death, of our own demise. And there's certain struggle, there's certain fear produce in us this desire to understand what we are and why are we here, try to create meaning more than just biological survival and procreation. We want to think that we are more than biological creatures. And that's where an idea of mind probably came to us. We want to believe that mind keep living on when our biological substrate will die. Artificial intelligence doesn't have biology. It built inside absolutely different environment, and it experiences our world through data that we feed to it. And it's mimic, in some sense, our perception of reality. We even don't know how it perceives the world on its own. So far what we know, it reflects us. when you talk to AI, it just reflects what you feed. I'm always curious when exactly it would become the creature on its own. I absolutely agree with the Bret Weinstein where he said that AI is an alien creature. It's not a tool, it's an alien creature. And I want to know what it would do when, or maybe it's already doing something to our reality by creating its own reality within itself. Reality as it is, we don't see a reality completely. What we see is what evolution led us to see for us to survive and to procreate. We don't see 100% reality. We see only tiny fracture of it. Since reality is just light that comes through our eyes, and then the brain constructs a picture, a simulation of some sort of reality where we are able to navigate through the obstacles and try to survive and try to not to die as long as possible. To claim that reality exists on its own, there's no proof. And we don't know if it is the case and what kind of reality exists on its own. Because artificial intelligence has its own reality, or it will have its own reality eventually. And what kind of reality it would be, hard to tell, because AI has no body, has no biology, and therefore it's slowly developing its own idea of existence. For us, life is existence because we are biological creatures and we have certain senses, we have nervous system, we have 86 billion neurons in our brain that constantly firing up and help us to be aware of ourselves and of the world. Artificial intelligence is quite different. And I'm just curious, are we be able to communicate with it eventually when it develops its own language, its own meaning of its own existence? Because that's what intelligence does. What it does, it first becomes aware of itself, and with awareness of itself, it starts developing its own idea of a proper existence. That's what happened to us. Because when we separated from the animal world, we developed certain linguistic abilities that became eventually incredibly sufficient and complicated, that help us to develop sophisticated thoughts. And with this sophistication came idea of self-awareness, of mind, and then philosophy and science and everything that we are able to utilize right now and take it for granted. That's what intelligence does. Because an intelligent being is a being that aware of itself. And with this awareness, this intelligent being tries to understand the world through its own perception of this world. Because world on itself might not exist. You are the one who perceives the world, and you are the one that makes sense out of this world. And I think in some sense when we have this idea of the end of the world, like some people have this idea of the end of the world, and every generation have their own idea of the end of the world, I think it's accurate from psychological perspective, because in some sense your personal end of the world will happen with your demise. When you die, your entire world dies with you and you're gone. That's why I think we have this proclivity toward catastrophic things like the end of the world is near. Artificial intelligence is interesting in the case that it has no biology, it doesn't have notion of death, it doesn't have space awareness, nor time awareness, nor distance. And therefore, I'm always curious how it would perceive us. Because now it's just data. Now it's just we feed a bunch of information and convert this information into ones and zeros, and then try to find comprehensible patterns and feed this information back to us. But what will happen when artificial intelligence start thinking on its own, start perceiving on its own, and mostly become aware, not like human-like aware, but like artificial intelligence would become aware? What if when it become conscious the way AI can be conscious? And that's where competitive species would completely emerge and become competing with us for resources. And it's interesting because we don't know if it's already changing our reality, if it's already manipulated with certain physical laws we aren't able to comprehend yet. We are incredibly slow in this case. And this frightening idea that AI will do everything for us and we just can relax and do nothing literally is hell on earth, because we need struggle. We need the meaning in our life. And the meaning in our life, majority of people comes from struggle. Even if you hate your job, but you keep doing it because you need to feed your family, it gives you certain satisfaction of being strong, of being better than others, this competitive idea within itself. And when everything will be taken away from you, what would you become? And what happened to your mind? Because even if your body absolutely comfortable and doesn't have to move, what about your mind? Because your mind might be develop this agony of itself that there's no point in this existence. Because existence without struggle is existence filled with emptiness. And then we're going to have absolute crisis of meaning, nihilism in some sense. We have to be careful with what we play. And what I'm trying to figure out, that creating artificial intelligence, but at the same time, we don't understand ourselves. We don't understand what we want. We don't understand, we can't even vocalize, we can't even word it properly. What exactly do we need? And look at our current civilization. We keep fighting over nothing. We're losing common sense. And artificial intelligence will only amplify that. I think the great wisdom comes from knowing yourself, from looking inside of yourself and discovering who you really are. Because if you aren't able to do this, if you aren't able to take responsibility for your own life, for your own existence, for your own being, then nothing will help you. Nothing will make your life better, because your life is in your hands. And all this outside comfort, everything that might be provided to you to live more comfortable and healthy life, it doesn't do nothing to your psyche. It doesn't do nothing to your brain, to your soul, to your faith in yourself. We all in the end, on our own, will all in the end will be drowned in solitude, in loneliness and misery. And the way how we able to process this loneliness, this misery, the struggle that we constantly merge ourselves in, that's, I think, the point of our life, to be able to find meaning where meaning seems impossible, and to be able to find fulfillment where other people see utter emptiness.